Hello, my name is Kiara Owens, and today I will be discussing authentic leadership. Although it's not everything that we'll discuss, the main points of this presentation will define authentic leadership, discuss the three perspectives, and the different approaches. It will also discuss the strengths and criticisms and apply it to nutrition and dietetics. So our first talking point is, what is authentic leadership? Currently, there is no formal definition of authentic leadership among scholars. This type of leadership is still in its formative stage, meaning that the research behind it is likely to expand and change over time. Authentic leadership was first identified but not fully developed in transformational leadership research. And transformational leadership is basically when a leader tries to train a follower to become a leader in the future. Although there's no formal definition for authentic leadership, there are several different viewpoints, different ways it's defined, and different emphasis. Generally, it's described as a genuine and real leadership. Pinelli, a different researcher, described it as a set of observable qualities derived from their core beliefs, values, and decision-making over time. On the other hand, Killick described it as an individual's self-knowledge when they exhibit their attitudes and beliefs as they wish without feeling like they're forcing themselves to, or like they're bending to an outside influence. What created the need for authentic leadership? If you're like me, you're probably thinking authentic leadership should go without saying. Leaders should be authentic, they should be themselves. It should be all about teamwork and motivation. However, most people started to seek out authentic leadership after the 9/11 attack. That was a time when people were very unsure. They lost family members, people lost their jobs, their life was changed drastically. And it caused them wanting to seek out a different type of leadership. 9/11 wasn't the only factor that led to people wanting to research authentic leadership. There was both external and internal motivators that led to that. So some of the external motivators were civic unrest, again from 9/11, but also from other things as well. There was a lot of corporate scandals at the time, misinformation in the purposeful spread of fake news. Some of the internal motivators, a big one was trust. With all of these scandals and unsureties going on in people's lives, they wanted leadership that they could trust. They wanted a sense of security and honesty. So a big requirement for authentic leadership is that people wanted relationships with basically people with good character, wholesome people that they could trust. I kind of see it as people kind of wanted their own personal superhero in their daily lives. An authentic leader is somebody that's described to have a high energy level, resolve, persistence, and strong convictions. And the reason that they have those is because they need them to overcome resistance, setbacks, deal with personal sacrifices, recruit employees, and energize their followers. There are three perspectives that we're going to discuss. The first perspective is the intrapersonal perspective, which evolves around the leader, basically what makes them a leader. The three main components is self-knowledge, self-regulation, and self-concept. Self-knowledge is understanding yourself, including your motives and your character. Self-regulation is controlling yourself without any outside influence or forces. And self-concept is the image of yourself that you constructed from your beliefs and values. All three of these things lead to a strong conviction, which is a firmly held belief. This perspective emphasizes life experiences and the meaning that develops behind those experiences. The second perspective is the interpersonal perspective. That perspective is relational because it's developed by both the leaders and the followers together. It's developed through teamwork, and that teamwork creates authentic interactions between the leaders and followers. So this perspective has a reciprocal process because not only does the leaders affect the followers, but the followers in return affect the leaders as well. The last perspective is developmental. This perspective claims that authentic leadership is a skill that can be developed over time and not a set trait. It can be developed over your lifetime and triggered by life experiences, such as the need to step up in a leadership role or not having an option and having to take a certain position. The developmental perspective says that authentic leader develops through positive psychological qualities and strong ethics. The two types of approaches are practical and theoretical. The practical approach is when you develop the skills over time through experiences such as training and developmental work. Theoretical is when you research this type of leadership through studying social science and other forms of research. So now we're going to talk about the practical approach, which is evolved around real life experiences. We're going to discuss Bill George's approach for authentic leadership. George's research focused on characteristics, qualities, and how the leaders developed those qualities. He was a successful corporate executive, so his research consisted of his personal experiences and him interviewing 125 other successful leaders. The 5 basic characteristics that he discussed are strong sense of purpose, strong values, trusting relationships, self-discipline, and sensitivity. The first one is purpose. Authentic leaders are extremely motivated. They know who they are and where they're going, and they're very intrinsically motivated. So that motivation inspires them and turns into passion. The second one is values. George says that authentic leaders know their true north because they know who they are and where they're going, and they're very unbending about their values. They refuse to compromise, and instead of adjusting their values for a certain situation, they believe in strengthening their values by finding alternative routes or alternative solutions to a problem. Because they are so firm in their values, it influences their behavior as well. The third characteristic is trusting relationships. So these leaders establish connections with people mainly through communication, through shared stories. Not only do they talk and share their experiences, but they listen as well. And they're able to develop trust and openness from their followers. There's a lot of different peer-reviewed articles about how followers feel more open when they have authentic leaders, and they're more willing to try new things than they would with other leaders or supervisors because of that founded trust. The fifth trait is self-discipline. So, like I've said before several times, these leaders are very determined. They're very self-motivated, and because of that, they set themselves as the standard of excellence, and they use their actions and their motivations to motivate their followers as well. They set goals and they're extremely focused on reaching them. And because they're so disciplined, it creates consistency, and it's an example that their followers want to take part in. The last trait is heart. Heart is basically the leader, being sensitive and empathetic. They can develop relationships through group work. They developed closer bonds through conversations, and that leads to a developed sensitivity and a connection that just furthers the culture of the company and leads to compassionate interactions. Next, we're going to talk about the theoretical approach model for authentic leadership. The theoretical approach model starts with a positive psychological capacities and moral reasoning. The positive psychological capacities include confidence, hope, optimism, and resilience. That combined with the values needed to make moral judgments can be utilized during critical times or events to form the 4 components needed for authentic leadership. The first component is self-awareness. Self-awareness includes feelings, motives, desires, beliefs, strengths, and weaknesses. You have to know all of those things about yourself to be self-aware. The next component is internalized moral perspective, which is basically just having a high moral standard to make certain decisions. Next is balanced processing, which is an unbiased evaluation before making a decision. Authentic leaders should remain unbiased at all times and use their morals to make the best possible judgment. That judgment also comes with relational transparency. That's when the leader knows when it's appropriate to share information, the willingness to give and receive feedback from followers, the openness about their motives and their decisions, going back to being unbiased and having moral standards, and the harmony between their words and actions, meaning their actions and their words both relate. These four components, self-awareness, internalized moral perspective, balanced processing, and relational transparency, has been founded to be the four components of authentic leadership from the theoretical approach. So there are a lot of results from using authentic leadership, and majority of them are positive. One result would be the commitment that an employee would have to the company. When authentic leadership is used, an employee feels a stronger commitment to the company and is less likely to leave. There have been several studies showing that even in times of stress, when authentic leadership is used, employees are a lot less likely to leave the company. There was a study with nurses showing that even during times like this with COVID, when their job is extremely difficult and extremely stressful, that authentic leadership did still show a positive effect on the turnover and the amount of people that wanted to leave. Another result would be knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing is basically when people in the same or different apartments work together and share information that benefits both of them. It's a great way to develop professionally and to network within the company. Authentic leadership can also lead to an increase in job satisfaction. When an employee feels like they're being acknowledged and their viewpoints are being heard, they're a lot more satisfied with their job. They feel a lot more valued and are a lot happier with the culture of the company. That leads to greater work engagement. Basically, greater work engagement is when the employee feels more valued, they're more likely to sign up for projects and tasks outside of their given job description, which can lead to higher performance in a higher productivity level overall. They also feel more inspired and passionate about their jobs because they feel like they're being heard and they feel like they're making progress in developing professionally instead of just being constantly shut down or put into a box. They feel like they're growing in their own way and that they have a sort of mentor slash partnership with the leader in that group. It also gives them a sense of security within their job when they know there's a healthy culture and that their supervisor or their leader is looking out for them. They don't have to worry about whether they're going to get fired or how will they look to the company if they do bad on a certain project. The last listed result is that authentic leaders have been shown to be superior during difficult times. because of the traits that we listed before, like their perseverance and their determination, they're shown to be reliable leaders during hard times and to continue to encourage and inspire their employees as well. This leadership theory has both strengths and critiques. The strengths are that it fulfills the need for that trustworthy leadership that people were asking for in the past and still are today. It also has guidelines that teaches you how to be this type of leader. This type of leadership is something that can be learned and developed over the years with the right experiences and possesses a strong value and moral viewpoint. You can also measure your authentic leadership skills with the questionnaire. Some of the critiques are that Bill George's practical approach is not fully developed and supported yet. Neither are the moral components fully explained. There was also mentioned that there is no guarantee for positive organizational results. However, there is a lot of literature that speaks against that. That and the fact that one of the critiques was that millennial generations would not respond to this type of leadership due to their individualization. Due to the statements that millennials would not respond to this type of leadership, Pinelli and his associates conducted research in 2018. Their research involved traditional lists, baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y being millennials. Although there were many claims from other research that leadership style must change to accommodate different generations, Pinelli's research showed otherwise. It claimed that this type of leader has unwavering values and beliefs based on their experiences, and that they do not alter their leadership style. Rather, they lead on an individual level. They use various tactics for different followers and situations, and they maximize the use of tactics when working in diverse groups. When I thought about how authentic leadership would apply to dietitians, I thought more in the terms of them interacting with clients or patients rather than being in an actual form of leadership. So the first reason I thought that was because authentic leadership has a lot of interpersonal relationships that lead to openness and readiness for change. And when I thought of that, I immediately thought of dietitians working with patients and developing a relationship to the point where they trust them enough to try new things and to take their advice. I also thought of that because authentic leaders are used in a time of disarray or a time where people are in need of additional support and encouragement. And I feel like dietitians do that as well. This doesn't apply to everybody, but a lot of dietitians, when they're doing clinical work, the people that they see are in pretty bad shape. And I feel like they are in a place where they need that extra support, and for somebody that they can have a one-on-one with and build a relationship. even if it's not a personal one. The third bulletin says that they act based on beliefs and values to build a reputation and gain the respect and trust of their followers. I believe that applies to clients as well. Everybody has to build their portfolio, and this type of leadership, it has very strong views on morals and being unbiased. And I feel like that's something that dietitians definitely have to apply, because when we give people advice, we give them advice based on where they are in life and the things that they want to do. We don't incorporate our own personal beliefs into their programs. And we also encourage them with ideas that may have been new to them, or maybe even original ideas, once we develop that relationship and once they do trust us and see that we have an unbiased perspective on their health and recovery. So this wasn't included in the agenda, but I just wanted to end on a note that would leave you thinking about certain things. These are 5 steps to think about if you want to be an authentic leader. The first one is know your purpose. So you should think about, what do you do that creates value for others, and why do you do what you do? The second one is know your values and principles. So what are your 4 critical values for doing good work? What actions or decisions demonstrate your values? The third one is know if you have the heart for leadership. Why should people be led by you? How can you enable other people to be successful? Number 4, know the relationship that you want to cultivate. Basically, when it comes to team members, who do you want to hire? How do you promote people? How do you develop people to the place they want to be? What type of patients or partners do you want to have? And number 5, know how to master self-discipline. So what are your weaknesses, and what actions are you willing to take to overcome those weaknesses? Those 5 steps were developed by Bill George. And just to summarize, if you want to work on being an authentic leader, what you should do is lead with purpose, values, and heart, cultivate long-term relationships, and demonstrate excellence through self-discipline. Thank you for your time. That is all for my presentation today.